I found the shredded pieces of my passport scattered across my bedroom floor at 11 p.m., just 7 hours before my flight to Singapore was scheduled to leave for the senior marketing position at the tech company. My sister Emma stood in the doorway holding the scissors, our parents flanking her with matching smirks on their faces. "Roaches don't deserve wings," Emma said with a laugh that sent chills down my spine. My mother stepped forward and added, "Your place is scrubbing our floors, not seeing the world." They left my room laughing together. I sat among the destroyed fragments of my passport, knowing they had absolutely no idea about the backup plan I'd already set in motion months ago. I knelt on my bedroom floor, carefully gathering each torn piece of my passport like I was collecting fragments of my shattered dreams. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was still on my knees in this house, just as I'd been for the past 23 years of my life, but this time was different. This time, I wasn't crying. Emma had always been the chosen one in our family. When she wanted to attend that expensive private college in Boston, our parents took out a second mortgage without batting an eye. When I'd asked for help with my community college tuition, they'd laughed and told me that education was wasted on someone whose destiny was to serve the family. The $60,000 car sitting in the driveway with Emma's name on the registration, that was my college fund, transferred the day I turned 18. For years, I'd been nothing more than unpaid labor in this house. Every morning started at 5 a.m. when I'd prepare breakfast for everyone before heading to my first job at the local diner. I'd work there until noon, rush home to clean Emma's disaster of a room because she couldn't focus on her studies in a messy space, then head to my afternoon shift at the grocery store. Evenings meant my third job doing data entry online, but not before I'd cooked dinner for the family and cleaned up afterward while they watched television in the living room. The financial abuse went deeper than just denying me education. Every paycheck I earned had to be shown to my parents for household budgeting purposes. They'd take 70% for room and board, despite the fact that my room was a converted pantry barely large enough for a twin bed. The remaining 30%? Half of that regularly disappeared into Emma's designer purse whenever she decided she needed new clothes or wanted to go out with friends. "Marianne, I need $300 for textbooks," she'd say, and I'd hand over money I'd saved for months. We both knew those textbooks would never materialize. The money would transform into cocktails at expensive bars or new highlights for her already perfect hair. If I protested, my parents would remind me that family supports family, and wasn't I grateful to have a roof over my head. The emotional manipulation was an art form they'd perfected over 2 decades. Every achievement of mine was minimized, while Emma's smallest accomplishment was celebrated with fanfare. When I graduated from community college with a 4.0 GPA while working 3 jobs, my parents didn't even attend the ceremony. They were too busy throwing Emma a party for passing her sophomore year with a C average. "Ma, smart doesn't matter when you're just going to be cleaning houses anyway," my father had said when I'd shown him my diploma. "At least now you can read the labels on cleaning products better." But what they didn't know, what they'd never suspected, was that 2 years ago, I'd started documenting everything. After a particularly brutal evening where they'd forced me to give Emma my entire savings account to fund her spring break trip to Cabo, I'd reached my breaking point. Not the kind where I'd explode or confront them, but the quiet kind where I'd decided to play the long game. I'd found a lawyer through a women's shelter helpline, meeting with her during my lunch breaks at the diner. She'd listened to my story with growing concern and had given me the best advice of my life: document everything, every demand for money, every insult every time they took my earnings. She'd explained that financial abuse was real, that what my family was doing had a name and legal ramifications. So I'd bought a small voice recorder barely bigger than a lipstick tube, and I'd started recording 2 years of family dinners where they discussed my worthlessness, 2 years of Emma's demands and my parents' enabling, 2 years of evidence that would eventually set me free. As I placed the last piece of my destroyed passport into a plastic bag, I allowed myself a small smile. They thought they'd clipped my wings tonight, but they had no idea I'd been building an entirely new set in secret. The recorder in my pocket had captured everything from this evening, from Emma's cruel words to my parents' laughter. It was all evidence now, and evidence was power. I stood up slowly, brushing off my knees. Tomorrow morning, they expected to find me broken, defeated, ready to accept my fate as their permanent servant. They expected tears and begging, maybe even gratitude that they were keeping me close to where I belonged. They had no idea what was really coming. 6 months ago, everything changed with a single LinkedIn message that I'd read in the bathroom at 2 a.m., the only time I could guarantee privacy in this house. Globecore, a major tech company with offices in Singapore, had reached out about a senior marketing position. The recruiter had seen my portfolio work I'd been building secretly for 3 years, using the computer at the public library. That portfolio was my first act of rebellion. While my family believed I spent my Sunday afternoons volunteering at the church, I was actually at the library teaching myself digital marketing through free online courses. I'd started taking on small freelance projects, building websites and managing social media for local businesses who paid me in cash that never made it to my parents' radar. The Singapore opportunity felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning person. The salary they were offering, $150,000 plus full relocation expenses, was more money than I'd ever dreamed of making. But I knew I had to be strategic. One hint to my family, and they'd find a way to destroy this chance, just like they destroyed so many others. So I became a master of deception, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. Survival sometimes requires you to play by different rules. I told my family I was taking extra shifts at the diner, but instead, I was meeting with Sarah, my one true friend, who'd escaped her own toxic family 5 years earlier. She understood what I was going through and offered her apartment as my secret headquarters. At Sarah's place, I created my escape plan with military precision. First, I needed documents my family couldn't destroy. I applied for a replacement passport, telling the authorities I'd lost my original during a move. It was surprisingly easy when you had all the supporting documents and paid the expedited fee. That passport lived in Sarah's safe, along with my birth certificate, social security card, and transcripts. The bank account was trickier. I couldn't use any bank in our town without risking my parents finding out. Sarah drove me 2 towns over, where I opened an account at a credit union, having my statements sent electronically to a new email address I'd created on Sarah's computer. Every cash payment from freelance work went into that account. Every tip I could hide, every penny I could scrape together without raising suspicion. The interview process with Globecore pushed my deception skills to their limits. The time difference between here and Singapore meant most video interviews happened at 3 or 4 in the morning. I'd sneak out of the house, telling my parents if they asked that I was covering the overnight shift for a sick coworker. I'd conduct professional interviews from Sarah's living room, wearing the one business blazer I'd bought from a thrift store and hidden in my car. There were 5 rounds of interviews over 3 months. Each time I had to maintain the charade, had to smile at dinner, while Emma complained about her professor being too demanding when he expected her to actually attend classes. I had to nod sympathetically while my mother talked about how lucky they were to have one daughter who could take care of them in their old age. The worst part was hiding my joy when the offer finally came through. I was washing dishes after Sunday dinner, my parents and Emma laughing at some reality show in the next room, when the email appeared on my phone. "Congratulations, Marianne. We are delighted to offer you the position of Senior Marketing Manager at Globecore Singapore." I'd wanted to scream with happiness, to dance around the kitchen, to run into that living room and tell them all exactly what I thought of their small, petty lives. Instead, I carefully dried each dish, placed it in the cabinet, and replied to the email from the bathroom. "I am thrilled to accept your offer." Globecorp's relocation package was comprehensive. They would handle my visa, provide temporary housing for the first month, and even offered a cultural integration program to help me adjust to life in Singapore. I processed all of this through my secret email, had documents sent to Sarah's address, and built an entire new life in the shadows of my old one. But hiding the practical preparations was only part of the challenge. The emotional preparation was even harder. Every insult, every demand, every moment of being treated as less than human, I had to absorb it all without reacting, knowing that my freedom depended on maintaining the facade. I became an actress worthy of an Oscar, playing the role of the defeated daughter, while secretly counting down the days until my departure. 3 weeks before my planned escape, something strange started happening with our mail. I noticed packages I'd been expecting never arrived. My magazine subscription mysteriously stopped. When I mentioned it casually at dinner, Emma had smirked and changed the subject. I should have known then that she was onto something. But I was so close to freedom, I could taste it. My flight was booked under the name on my new passport, Marianne Elizabeth Walsh, not the nickname Mary my family had always used to diminish me. My belongings that mattered were already at Sarah's, slowly moved over months under the guise of donating old clothes to charity. My resignation letters for all 3 jobs were written and dated, ready to be delivered after I was safely on the plane. Everything was in place, everything was perfect. I just had to make it through 3 more weeks. That night, standing in my room with my destroyed passport, I realized Emma must have been intercepting my mail for months. She'd known about the interviews, the offers, maybe even the new life I was building, and she'd waited until the last possible moment to strike maximum cruelty for maximum impact. But what Emma didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd learned to play chess while they were still playing checkers. The passport in Sarah's safe was my queen protected and ready to deliver checkmate. As I sat on my bed, surrounded by the evidence of their latest cruelty, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to Sarah. They made their move. Time for ours. Her response came immediately. Everything's ready. Sarah's taxi service will be at the corner at 4 a.m. Singapore here? You come. I looked at the plastic bag full of passport pieces and almost felt grateful. They'd just given me the perfect evidence of their deliberate sabotage, the final nail in the coffin I'd been building for 2 years. Sometimes the cruelest acts become the greatest gifts, and tonight my family had given me exactly what I needed to leave them behind forever. I couldn't stay in my room with the remnants of their cruelty, so I walked downstairs to the living room, where my family was still celebrating their victory. They were sharing a bottle of wine, the expensive kind they only brought out for special occasions. Apparently, destroying my future qualified as one of those moments worth commemorating. Emma lounged across the leather sofa, her perfectly manicured feet up on the coffee table I'd polished just that morning. My parents sat in their matching recliners, the ones I'd saved for 6 months to buy them last Christmas, only to be told the color wasn't quite right. The television was on, but none of them were watching. They were too busy reliving their moment of triumph. You should have seen your face, Emma giggled, taking another sip of wine, standing there with your mouth open like a goldfish. Did you really think we'd let you abandon us? I stepped fully into the room, and the recorder in my pocket caught every word as my father set down his wine glass with deliberate precision. Sit down, Marianne. We need to discuss your future. Your real future, not these fantasies you've been entertaining. Fantasies. I remained standing, my voice steady. You mean my job offer? My mother laughed, a harsh sound that had haunted my childhood nightmares. Oh, we know all about your job offer. Did you think you were being clever, sneaking around behind our backs? That's when my father pulled out a manila folder from beside his chair and my blood ran cold. He spread the contents across the coffee table with the satisfaction of a poker player revealing a winning hand. Printed emails, screenshots of my conversations with Globecorp, Details about my salary, my start date, my relocation package. 6 months ago, I installed monitoring software on the router, he said, his voice dripping with condescension. Every email you sent, every website you visited, every pathetic attempt at secrecy, we saw it all. Even that little freelance business you thought you were hiding. By the way, your clients will be receiving notifications tomorrow that you're no longer available. We've already sent them from your email account. My knees threatened to buckle, but I forced myself to remain standing. All those careful plans, all that secrecy, and they'd been watching the entire time. But wait, if they'd been monitoring the router, they'd only have seen what I did from home. My real correspondence with GlobeCorp had happened from Sarah's place, using her computer and internet connection. The emails they had were from my decoy account, the one I'd suspected might be compromised. Nothing to say, Emma taunted. No more dreams of escaping to Singapore good because we've saved you the embarrassment of showing up at the airport tomorrow. She pulled out her own phone, showing me an email sent from my decoy account to GlobeCorp at 8:47 p.m. just hours ago. Dear GlobeCorp team. She read aloud, her voice mocking my professional tone. Due to unexpected family obligations, I must regretfully decline your generous offer. My responsibilities to my family must come first. Please withdraw my application. Sincerely, Marianne Walsh. My mother chimed in. We even called them to confirm they received it. Such a nice young man on the phone. He seemed very understanding when we explained that you'd realized your place was here, taking care of your family. You called them... My voice was sharper now. You impersonated me. We did what was necessary to protect this family, my father said. Your selfishness has gone on long enough. Do you have any idea what people would say if you abandoned us? The Walsh family has a reputation in this town. We're respected, established. We won't have you running off to God knows where, leaving us to explain your dereliction of duty. Oh, my duty. The words tasted bitter. My duty to what? To be your unpaid servant for the rest of my life. Emma sat up, her face flushing with anger. You owe us everything. This roof over your head, the food you eat, the clothes on your back. The clothes I buy with money I earn from 3 jobs, I interrupted. The food I cook after working 12-hour days. The roof you charge me $700 a month to sleep under in a converted pantry. Ungrateful, my mother spat. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done. I reached into my pocket, feeling the smooth surface of my phone. Should we talk about everything you've done? Like the time you made me give Emma my entire savings for her spring break trip? Or when you forced me to skip my community college graduation to cater Emma's boyfriend's birthday party? Or how about last month when you took my car keys because Emma needed my car for a week, making me walk 4 miles to work in the rain? My father stood up, his face darkening. Watch your tone, young lady. You're 23 years old and still living under our roof. You follow our rules. Your rules, I repeated, pulling out my phone. Let's talk about your rules. They watched with confusion as I opened an app on my phone. Suddenly, my father's voice filled the room, recorded at dinner 6 months ago. Emma deserves the master bedroom. Marianne can keep the pantry. It's not like she needs space for anything important. My mother's recorded voice followed. Make sure Marianne transfers her paycheck tomorrow. Emma needs new textbooks. Emma's laugh echoed after. Textbooks? Right. Thanks, Mom. The color drained from their faces as they realized what I'd been doing. 2 years of their greatest hits played from my phone. Every cruel word, every financial demand, every admission of treating me as less than human. You recorded us, Emma shrieked, jumping to her feet. You sneaky little... I documented abuse, I corrected. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, and destroying a federal document. I gestured to my room upstairs where the passport pieces waited. That's a federal crime, but please tell me more about family obligations. My father lunged for my phone, but I'd anticipated this. I stepped back, holding it high. It's all backed up to the cloud, multiple servers. My lawyer has access to everything. Your lawyer... My mother's voice cracked. Did you think I was as stupid as you always said I was? I asked. I've been preparing for this night for 2 years. Every insult, every theft, every moment you tried to break me, it's all evidence now. Emma's face contorted with rage. You're bluffing! You don't have a lawyer! You don't have anything! You're nothing without us! Nothing. Let me show you what nothing looks like, I said, pulling up another app. This is my real Globe Corps correspondence, not the fake email account you've been monitoring, but my actual conversations with them. Would you like to see the email I sent them an hour ago, letting them know someone would likely try to impersonate me, or the confirmation that my position is still waiting for me in Singapore's? The silence that followed was beautiful. For the first time in my life, my family was speechless. They'd played what they thought was their winning hand, only to discover I'd been playing an entirely different game. The silence didn't last long. Emma's face crumbled, tears streaming down her cheeks in a performance I'd seen 100 times before. She collapsed back onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands as sobs shook her shoulders. My parents immediately rushed to comfort her, my mother stroking her hair while my father rubbed her back. "Look what you've done," my mother hissed at me. "Your sister is in distress, and all you can think about is yourself." Emma's sobs grew louder, more theatrical, until finally she lifted her tear-stained face. "I didn't want it to come to this," she whimpered. "I thought we could handle this as a family, but Marianne is forcing my hand." My father's expression shifted to concern. "What is it, sweetheart? You can tell us anything." Emma took a shuddering breath, placing a protective hand over her stomach in a gesture so calculated it made me sick. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. My father's eyes widened, darting between Emma's face and her stomach. I remained silent, watching this new manipulation unfold. 3 months along, Emma continued, her voice small and vulnerable. "Jake and we were being careful, but accidents happen. He doesn't know yet. I haven't told him because I wanted to finish law school first. I can't drop out now, not when I'm so close to graduating." "Oh, sweetheart," my mother cooed, pulling Emma into her arms. "We'll figure this out together. Don't you worry about anything." Emma peeked at me over my mother's shoulder, and for just a moment I saw the calculating glint in her eyes before the tears resumed. "That's why I need Marianne here. Someone has to help with the baby while I finish school. It's only 2 more years, and then I can provide for my child properly." My father nodded, as if this all made perfect sense. "Of course. Family takes care of family. Marianne will help raise the baby while you complete your education." "I'm sorry, what—" I finally found my voice. "You expect me to give up my career to raise Emma's baby?" "It's not giving up anything," my mother said, her tone suggesting I was being deliberately obtuse. "It's gaining a purpose. You'll be Aunt Marianne, helping to shape the next generation of our family." Emma sat up straighter, wiping her tears with delicate fingers. "I've already talked to Mom and Dad about converting your room into a nursery. Well, a proper nursery. It's small but perfect for a baby. You can sleep on the pull-out couch in the basement. I know it's a bit damp down there, but we'll get you a good dehumidifier." "You've already planned this." I couldn't hide my disbelief. "You've been planning to steal my room for a baby you just announced 30 seconds ago." My father stood, walking to the hallway closet. He pulled out a box I'd never seen before, setting it on the coffee table. Inside were paint samples in soft pastels, nursery furniture catalogs, and fabric swatches for curtains. "We've known for a few weeks," he admitted. "Emma wanted to wait for the right moment to tell you, but destroying your passport became necessary when we realized you might actually try to leave." A few weeks. I looked at the materials spread before me. Some of these catalogs were dated from 2 months ago. "You've been planning this for months." Emma's tears had miraculously dried. "The pregnancy was a surprise, but the timing couldn't be more perfect. You were trying to abandon us anyway. Now you have a real reason to stay, a purpose. Isn't that what you've always wanted to matter?" To matter? The words came out as a whisper. I've worked 3 jobs since I was 16. I've cooked every meal, cleaned every room, paid rent for a pantry, and you think I need your baby to matter? My mother pulled out her phone, scrolling through messages. I've already told the extended family. Cousin Martha is so excited. She's organizing a baby shower for next month. And Grandma Helen, you know how she's been wanting great-grandchildren. She's already knitting blankets. Of course, we told them you volunteered to be the live-in nanny, my father added. Everyone thinks it's so wonderful how you're stepping up for your sister. Pastor Williams even mentioned he'd like to recognize your sacrifice during next Sunday's service. The manipulation was breathtaking in its scope. They'd created a public narrative before even telling me, boxing me in with social expectations and family pressure. In our small town, reputation was everything, and they just painted me as the devoted aunt who'd volunteered to sacrifice her future for her sister's mistake. Or show her the schedule, Emma said, reaching for another folder. My mother handed it over, and I saw they'd mapped out my new life in 15-minute increments. 5 a.m., prepare baby's morning bottle. 5:15, quiet time while baby sleeps, use this to prep breakfast for family. 6 a.m., feed baby. 6:30, bathe baby while Emma showers. 7 a.m. Emma leaves for classes, begin daily housework with baby and carrier. We've thought of everything, Emma said proudly. I can still graduate summa cum laude, and you get to be part of something bigger than yourself. It's win-win. And Jake, I asked, what does the father think about all this? Emma's expression flickered for just a moment. Jake doesn't need to know yet. I'll tell him when the time is right. Maybe after the bar exam. No need to distract him from his own studies. I studied her face, seeing the micro-expressions I'd learned to read over years of living with her lies, the way her left eye twitched when she was fabricating stories, the slight tilt of her head when she was gauging if her manipulation was working, the almost imperceptible tension in her jaw when she was hiding something significant. You're lying, I said flatly. Excuse me, Emma's voice pitched higher. There is no baby. I continued, watching as her carefully constructed facade began to crack. This is just another manipulation, another way to keep me trapped here. Go, how dare you? My mother stood, her face flushed with anger. Your sister shares her precious news and you accuse her of lying. What kind of monster are you? The kind who's documented 2 years of lies, I replied, pulling out my phone again. Should we talk about the time Emma faked having mono to get out of summer classes, or when she pretended to have a stalker so Jake would pay for a security system she later returned for cash, or my personal favorite when she claimed she needed surgery for endometriosis but spent the GoFundMe money on a trip to Cabo? Emma's face had gone pale. Those were misunderstandings. No, I interrupted. They were cons, and this is your biggest one yet. But you made one mistake. What mistake? She tried to sound confident, but her voice wavered. I smiled, the kind of smile I'd never allowed myself in this house before. You forgot that I've been watching you my whole life, learning your tells, and right now your left eye is twitching. Your head is tilted exactly 12 degrees to the right, and you're clenching your jaw so hard I'm surprised your teeth haven't cracked. The room exploded. Emma lunged at me, screaming obscenities. My parents tried to restore order, shouting over each other. And in the chaos, my phone in my raised hand continued recording everything. I'll take a pregnancy test right now, Emma shrieked. I'll prove it. Then do it, I challenged. There's a 24-hour pharmacy 2 blocks away. Let's go right now, all of us. The sudden silence was deafening. Emma looked to our parents for help, but even they seemed uncertain now. The elaborate nursery plans, the family announcements, the carefully crafted schedule, it all hung in the balance of a simple drugstore test. I can't, Emma finally whispered. The stress. It wouldn't be good for the baby. The baby that doesn't exist, I said. Just like my future didn't exist in your plans. Just like my dreams never existed in this family. Just like I never existed as anything more than your servant. I backed toward the door, my phone still recording. But here's the beautiful irony. While you were planning fake nurseries and imaginary futures, I was building a real life. And not all the lies in the world can stop me from living it. As I reached the doorway, I paused and looked back at my family. These three people who'd shared my blood, but never my dreams. Oh, and Emma. Next time you plan a fake pregnancy, maybe don't document your birth control prescription refills on the insurance statements I process for Dad's home office. The ones from last week are particularly interesting, don't you think? The last thing I saw before heading upstairs was Emma's mask, finally completely shattering, revealing the desperate, the manipulative person beneath. It was in its own way the most honest moment we'd shared in years. I reached my room and immediately called Marcus on speaker, making sure my family could hear everything from downstairs. Marcus Chen wasn't just any lawyer, he was Sarah's cousin and had graduated from Yale Law with honors. When I'd first met him 2 years ago, he'd been appalled by my family's treatment and had offered to help pro bono, saying my case would make an excellent addition to his growing portfolio of financial abuse litigation. Marcus, it's happening, I said as soon as he answered. They destroyed my passport. I have everything recorded. Marianne, are you safe? His voice was calm but concerned. Do you need me to call the police? I'm documenting everything first, I replied. They've admitted to destroying a federal document monitoring my communications and attempting to impersonate me with my employer. I heard footsteps pounding up the stairs. My family burst into my room, their faces twisted with panic. My father reached for my phone, but I held it away from him. Is that your family entering without permission? Marcus asked. Marianne, I need you to state clearly if you feel threatened. They're here against my will, I said loudly. My father is attempting to take my phone. Don't touch her phone, Marcus's voice commanded through the speaker. Mr. Walsh, if you're listening, I'm Marcus Chen, Ms. Walsh's attorney. Any attempt to destroy evidence or harm my client will result in immediate law enforcement intervention. My father froze, his hand still extended. She doesn't have an attorney. She can't afford one. I'm representing Ms. Walsh pro bono, Marcus continued. Now let's discuss the federal crime you've committed. Destroying a passport is a violation of 18 U.S.C. Section 1543. That's up to 25 years in prison and significant fines. Emma laughed nervously. You're bluffing. No one goes to jail for cutting up a passport. Would you like me to conference in Assistant U.S. Attorney Rodriguez? Marcus offered. She's particularly interested in cases involving domestic financial abuse and federal document destruction. I believe she's still in her office. The color drained from my mother's face. This is ridiculous. We're a family having a disagreement. A disagreement. I stepped back, keeping distance between us. You've stolen approximately $60,000 from me over 5 years. You've destroyed federal property. You've committed identity theft by impersonating me to my employer. You've held me in forced servitude through financial manipulation. Forced servitude. My father scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. The legal term is peonage, Marcus explained, compelling someone to work against their will through debt manipulation and psychological coercion. The Trafficking Victims Protection Act has specific provisions about this. Add in the financial abuse documented over 2 years, and we're looking at both civil and criminal cases. Emma's bravado finally cracked completely. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. You can't do this to us. We're your family. The pain shot through my arm as her nails broke skin. I cried out, jerking away, and saw blood welling from 3 deep scratches. She just assaulted me, I told Marcus, examining my arm. I'm bleeding. Don't move, Marcus commanded. I'm calling 911 now. Do not wash that wound. Do not change clothes. That's evidence. No, my mother reached for my phone. We can handle this ourselves. My father grabbed my shoulders, shaking me. End the call. Tell him it was a misunderstanding. Mr. Walsh, you're now committing battery. Marcus's voice was sharp. every second you continue touching her adds to your charges." The situation spiraled faster than a tornado. Emma was screaming that I was ruining her life. My mother was trying to disconnect my phone. My father's grip on my shoulders tightened until I knew I'd have bruises, and through it all, Marcus stayed on the line, documenting every second. That's when Emma made her biggest mistake. In her rage, she picked up my laptop from my desk and threw it against the wall. The device shattered pieces of screen and keyboard scattering across the floor. "That laptop contains my work portfolio," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Approximately $3,000 in equipment and countless hours of work." "Now we add destruction of property to the charges," Marcus noted. "The assault, battery, and property destruction have elevated this from civil to criminal matter. I strongly advise you all to step away from Ms. Walsh immediately." But my family was beyond reason. My father pushed me onto my bed, looming over me. "You're not leaving this room until you drop all of this nonsense. Call off your lawyer." "False imprisonment," Marcus announced, adding to the list. "I need an ambulance," I said, looking at my arm where the blood was now running down to my wrist. "The cuts are deeper than I thought." "Already dispatched," Marcus assured me. "Police are en route as well. ETA 4 minutes. Police." Emma's shriek could have shattered windows. "You called the police on your own family." "I called the police on my abusers," I corrected, standing up despite my father's attempt to push me down again. "There's a difference." My mother tried a different tactic, tears streaming down her face. "Marianne, please. Think about what you're doing. The scandal, our reputation, your father's business, Emma's law career. You'll destroy us all." "You destroyed my passports," I reminded her. "You've stolen my wages for years. You've treated me as slave labor. You just assaulted me. And you're worried about reputation." "We'll pay you back," my father said desperately. "Every penny. Just call off the lawyer. Tell the police it was a misunderstanding." "With interest," Marcus interjected. "My calculations show approximately $78,000 in stolen wages, plus damages for emotional distress, lost opportunities, and now medical bills and assault charges. Are you prepared to write a check for $200,000 tonight?" The number hung in the air like a guillotine blade. My family exchanged panicked looks. They didn't have that kind of money. They'd spent everything they'd stolen from me on Emma's education, vacations, and luxury items. "We could mortgage the house," my mother whispered. "The house you already mortgaged for Emma's college?" I asked. "The one you're 3 payments behind on, because Emma needed a new car last month." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Red and blue lights began flashing through my window. My family looked like trapped animals, finally realizing the cage they'd built for me had somehow become their own prison. "Please," Emma begged, all pretense gone. "I'll graduate in a year. I'll get a job. I'll pay you back everything. Just don't do this. Don't ruin my life." "Ruin your life?" I held up my bleeding arm. "Like you tried to ruin mine." Heavy footsteps on the stairs announced the arrival of the authorities. My bedroom door, already open from my family's forced entry, revealed 2 police officers and 2 paramedics. "We received a call about an assault," the lead officer said, taking in the scene, my bloody arm, the destroyed laptop, my father still standing too close to me in a threatening manner. "Officer Johnson," a familiar voice called from behind them. "I have video evidence of the assault." Miss Rodriguez, my next-door neighbor, appeared in the doorway holding her phone. The retired FBI agent looked every inch the formidable investigator she'd once been. "I've been recording from my window since I heard the screaming. The young woman's sister drew blood with her nails, and her father has been physically restraining her." My family's destruction was complete. But as the paramedics moved to treat my arm and the officers began taking statements, I felt something I'd never experienced in this house before: the solid ground of justice beneath my feet. "Marcus," I said into the phone, which had somehow remained connected through everything, "thank you." "Don't thank me yet," he replied. "This is just the beginning. But Marianne, You're going to be free. I promise you that." As the officers read my family their rights, I realized he was right. The legal bombshell had detonated, and when the dust settled, I would finally be free. Officer Johnson stood in my tiny room, his presence making the space feel even smaller. His partner, Officer Martinez, was photographing the destroyed laptop while the paramedics cleaned and bandaged my arm. Ms. Rodriguez hadn't moved from the doorway, her phone still in hand, standing guard like a protective sentinel. "Let's start from the beginning," Officer Johnson said, pulling out his notepad. "What happened here tonight?" Before I could speak, Emma launched into her performance. "This is all a misunderstanding, officers. We were having a family discussion about Marianne's travel plans and things got a bit emotional. You know how families can be." "A bit emotional?" Officer Martinez held up a piece of my shattered laptop. "This looks like more than emotions to me." "She's trying to abandon us," my mother interjected, tears still flowing. "We were just trying to make her see reason. My daughter would never actually hurt her sister. They were playing and it got out of hand." "Playing?" I held up my bandaged arm. "I'm 23 years old. We weren't playing." "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to be quiet while I take Ms. Walsh's statement," Officer Johnson told my mother firmly. He turned back to me. "Go ahead, miss." I took a breath and began. "My family destroyed my passport tonight to prevent me from leaving for a job in Singapore tomorrow morning. When I confronted them, they admitted to monitoring my communications and impersonating me to my employer. When I refused to comply with their demands, my sister assaulted me and my father restrained me." "She's lying," Emma said quickly. "I never touched her. She did that to herself for attention." Ms. Rodriguez stepped forward. "Officers, I have video evidence that contradicts that claim." She showed them her phone where the footage clearly showed Emma grabbing me and her nails raking down my arm. Officer Johnson watched the video, his expression growing darker. "Ms. Walsh, do you want to press charges?" Yes," I said without hesitation. "This is insane," my father exploded. "You can't arrest us in our own home." "Sir, I need you to calm down," Officer Martinez warned. "Don't tell me to calm down." My father stepped toward the officer. "This is my house. That ungrateful brat lives under my roof." "Sir, step back." Officer Johnson commanded, his hand moving to his radio. But my father was beyond reason. Years of unchallenged authority in this house had made him believe he was untouchable. He grabbed Officer Martinez's arm. "You need to leave, now." The next moments happened in rapid succession. Officer Martinez efficiently restrained my father, while Officer Johnson called for backup. My mother screamed. Emma tried to run, but Ms. Rodriguez smoothly stepped in her path. "I wouldn't do that, dear," Ms. Rodriguez said calmly. "Fleeing the scene would only make things worse." "You did this," Emma snarled at me. "You planned all of this." "No," I corrected. "You did this when you destroyed my passport. I just refused to be a victim anymore." Within minutes, 2 more police cars arrived, the house filled with officers. My father was in handcuffs, still shouting about his rights and his property. My mother had collapsed on my bed, sobbing hysterically. Emma stood frozen, finally realizing her actions had consequences. "We need to see the destroyed passport," Officer Johnson told me. I retrieved the bag of fragments from my desk drawer, handing it over. I collected all the pieces I could find. He examined the contents, his face grave. "Destroying a passport is a federal crime. We'll need to contact the appropriate authorities." He sealed the bag as evidence. "There's more," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have 2 years of recorded conversations documenting financial abuse." I played a few samples for the officers, their expressions growing more serious with each admission of theft and manipulation. "This is extensive," Officer Johnson said. "We'll need you to come to the station to file a complete report." "Can it wait until after she's been treated properly?" Ms. Rodriguez interjected. "Those wounds need proper medical attention, and she's been through significant trauma tonight." The lead paramedic nodded. We should take her to the ER for a full examination. The cuts need proper cleaning, and given the domestic violence situation, she should be evaluated for other injuries. I'm fine, I started to say, then stopped. Years of minimizing my pain had become automatic. Actually, no, I'm not fine. My shoulders hurt from where my father grabbed me, and I think I hit my ribs when he pushed me onto the bed. We'll transport you to the hospital, the paramedic decided. Officer Johnson can take your full statement there. As they prepared to leave, Officer Martinez made a discovery that changed everything. Johnson, you need to see this. He'd been examining Emma's room as part of the investigation and emerged holding a journal. Emma's face went white. That's private property. You can't read that. It was in plain sight on your desk, open to today's date, Officer Martinez said. He showed a page to Officer Johnson, whose eyebrows rose dramatically. This details a plan to destroy your sister's passport, he told Emma, going back 3 months, with notes about intercepting mail and monitoring her communications. It's just creative writing, Emma said desperately. Fiction, for a class. Officer Martinez flipped through more pages. This fiction includes detailed plans to sabotage job interviews, forge rejection letters, and... He paused reading. Frame your sister for theft if she tried to leave. The room went silent, except for my mother's continued sobbing. Even my father had stopped shouting, finally understanding the depth of their premeditation. We'll be taking all 3 of you in for questioning, Officer Johnson announced. Mr. Walsh, you're under arrest for assault on a police officer and domestic battery. Mrs. Walsh and Emma Walsh, you're being detained for questioning regarding conspiracy fraud and destruction of federal property. I need my heart medication, my mother wailed. I can't go to jail. I have a heart condition. Any necessary medications will be provided, Officer Johnson assured her, but you should have thought about your health before participating in federal crimes. As the officers prepared to escort my family out, Emma made one last desperate plea. Marianne, please, tell them this is all a mistake. We're sisters. Blood is thicker than water. I looked at her, at all of them, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just a blank space where family feelings should have been. You're right. Blood is thicker than water, but you forgot the full quote. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. The family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into, and I choose to leave you behind. The officers led them out in a procession of shame. Neighbors had gathered on their lawns, drawn by the multiple police cars. Mrs. Patterson, across the street, had her phone out, undoubtedly live streaming to the neighborhood Facebook group. By morning, everyone in town would know what had happened in the Walsh house. Oh, you did the right thing, Miss Rodriguez said softly, placing a gentle hand on my uninjured shoulder. I've watched them mistreat you for years. I should have intervened sooner. You intervened when it mattered most, I told her. Thank you. As the paramedics helped me into the ambulance, I saw the police searching my family's vehicles. Officer Martinez emerged from Emma's car holding stacks of mail. My mail with various return addresses, including what looked like official documents from Singapore. Looks like mail theft too, he called to his partner. This just keeps getting better. As the ambulance doors closed and we pulled away from the house that had been my prison for 23 years, I felt something shift in my chest. It wasn't the bruised ribs. It was the feeling of chains, breaking of walls, crumbling of a cage door swinging open. I was leaving in an ambulance instead of an airport shuttle, but I was still leaving, and that's all that mattered. The emergency room at Riverside General was quieter than I'd expected for a Thursday night. The triage nurse, whose name tag read Patricia, took one look at my bandaged arm, and the police officer accompanying me and fast-tracked me to an examination room. Dr. Sarah Chen entered within minutes, her expression professional but kind. I'm going to need to examine all your injuries, Ms. Walsh. The officer can step outside if you'd prefer privacy. He can stay, I said. Officer Johnson needed to document everything. As Dr. Chen unwrapped my arm to clean the wounds properly, she frowned. These are deep. You'll need a tetanus shot and possibly antibiotics. She began examining my shoulders where my father had grabbed me, finding dark bruises already forming in the shape of handprints. I need to check your ribs, she said gently. As I lifted my shirt, she drew in a sharp breath. Ms. Walsh, these bruises. Some of them aren't from tonight. I looked down at the yellowing marks on my ribcage, evidence of last week when I'd been clumsy and fallen into the kitchen counter after refusing to hand over my tips from the diner. Those are from before. Dr. Chen exchanged a look with Officer Johnson. I need to do a full examination. This could take some time. What followed was the most thorough medical exam I'd ever received. X-rays of my ribs revealed 2 old fractures that had healed improperly. A scan of my left wrist showed evidence of an untreated break from 3 years ago when Emma had slammed my hand in a door during an argument about money. You have signs of prolonged physical abuse, Dr. Chen said softly. Scarring consistent with repeated injuries, malnutrition indicators despite being employed, classic signs of domestic violence. I've never thought of it as violence, I admitted. They're my family. Us, family members, commit the majority of domestic violence, she replied. I need to ask, have you ever sought medical treatment for these injuries before? I thought back to all the times I'd been hurt, the accidents and clumsy moments that left me bruised and bleeding. Once, 2 years ago, I had appendicitis. Dr. Chen pulled up something on her computer. I see the record here. You were admitted with acute appendicitis, but there's a note. You were brought in by a neighbor after your parents left you in the parking lot. They had to take Emma to a consultation. I explained automatically, then caught myself. No, that's what I told everyone. The truth is, they said I was being dramatic about stomach pain and left me here. Miss Rodriguez found me collapsed in the parking lot and brought me inside. Officer Johnson had been taking notes throughout. Ms. Rodriguez, that's the neighbor who provided video evidence tonight. I nodded. She's helped me more than she knows. Dr. Chen continued her examination, documenting every scar, every old injury, every sign of abuse. The social worker who arrived, a woman named Janet, with silver hair and knowing eyes, listened as I finally told the truth about 23 years of escalating abuse. The financial control started when I was 16, I explained. The physical violence was less frequent usually when I resisted their demands. They were always careful to hurt me where it wouldn't show or in ways that could be explained as accidents. Calculated abuse, Janet noted. They knew exactly what they were doing. A knock on the door interrupted us. A nurse entered. Dr. Chen, there's some commotion in the waiting room. A family demanding to see a patient. My blood ran cold. They made bail already. Officer Johnson stepped out to investigate, returning with a grim expression. Your parents are in the waiting room with someone who claims to be their lawyer. They're demanding you recant your statement. They can't contact her, Janet said firmly. If charges have been filed, that's witness intimidation. I'll handle it, Officer Johnson said, leaving again. Through the thin walls, I could hear raised voices, my father's booming demands, my mother's theatrical sobs, then silence. Officer Johnson returned with a slight smile. Hospital security and 2 more officers escorted them out. They've been warned that any attempt to contact you violates their bail conditions. They made bail. I couldn't hide my fear. Only your mother, he clarified. Your father is being held without bail due to assaulting an officer. Emma's bail hearing is tomorrow morning, but your mother has been ordered to stay away from you, and the house is considered a crime scene, so she can't return there either. As the night wore on, more revelations came to light. The hospital's financial department, alerted by Janet, discovered years of insurance claims filed in my name for injuries I'd never had treated insurance fraud to collect money that never went to my care. Your parents have been billing your insurance for treatments you never received, the administrator explained, claiming they were providing home care for injuries that required professional treatment. We're looking at hundreds of thousands in fraudulent claims. Each new discovery felt like another bar of my cage breaking. They hadn't just abused me, they'd profited from it. Around 3 in the morning, as I was finally being prepared for discharge, my phone buzzed. Sarah's name lit up the screen. "Marianne, I've been worried sick. Are you okay?" "I'm at the hospital," I told her. "But I'm okay, more than okay actually. I'm free." "I have everything ready," she said. "Your real passport, your documents close. Marcus called me. He's been coordinating with the prosecutor all night. And Marianne Globecorps called him. They saw the news coverage. They're holding your position and offered to cover legal expenses." News coverage. "Oh, honey, your neighbor's video went viral. Local family destroys daughter's passport to keep her as servant." It's everywhere. The company wants to make sure you know they support you completely. I sank back against the hospital bed, overwhelmed. This morning, I'd been a prisoner. Tonight, I was free with a job waiting on the other side of the world and a company willing to fight for me. There's one more thing," Sarah added. "That second set of recordings you stored at my place. The ones from your father's home office, Marcus says they're gold. Apparently, your parents have been claiming you as a dependent on their taxes while charging you rent. That's tax fraud on top of everything else." Dr. Chen returned with my discharge papers. "You're cleared to go, but I recommend follow-up care for those old injuries. And Ms. Walsh, I've been doing this for 15 years. I've never seen someone handle trauma with such grace. You're going to do amazing things." As I signed the papers, Officer Johnson delivered one final piece of news. "Emma's journal contained more than just plans against you. She's been running credit card scams using fake identities. The FBI is now involved. This isn't just domestic abuse anymore. It's a federal case." I thought I should feel something about my family's destruction. Guilt, perhaps, or sadness. Instead, I felt only relief. They'd built their own house of cards on a foundation of my suffering. I'd simply stopped being their support beam. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you go live your life," Janet said. "We'll handle the legal matters. You focus on healing and that new job in Singapore." As I left the hospital in the pre-dawn darkness, Sarah's car waiting outside, I realized the sun would rise soon on my first day of real freedom. My family had tried to clip my wings, but they'd only taught me I was meant to soar. Sarah drove me to her apartment as the first hints of dawn painted the sky purple and gold. I was exhausted but wired, running on adrenaline and the strange euphoria of freedom. As we pulled into her driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked on the street, a pristine silver Mercedes that looked out of place in Sarah's modest neighborhood. "Were you expecting someone?" I asked. Sarah looked puzzled. "No, maybe it's—" A woman emerged from the car and my breath caught. Even in the dim morning light, I recognized the elegant posture, the silver-streaked auburn hair styled in a perfect chignon. Aunt Patricia. I hadn't seen her in 10 years, not since the explosive Thanksgiving dinner when she'd called my parents parasites and been banished from family gatherings. "Mother Marianne," she said, her voice exactly as I remembered, cultured, confident, with an undertone of steel. "We need to talk." "Patricia," I couldn't hide my shock. "How did you—" "Know where to find you." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I've been keeping tabs on you for years, dear. May we go inside? What I have to share shouldn't be discussed on the street." Sarah unlocked her door, ushering us into her living room. Patricia sat with practiced grace, her designer suit impeccable despite what must have been a long drive. She pulled a leather portfolio from her bag, her movements deliberate. "I saw the news coverage," she began. "Your neighbor's video, the arrest, everything. I've been waiting 10 years for you to break free from them, but I never imagined it would happen so dramatically." "Why are you here?" I asked, too tired for pleasantries. Patricia's expression softened. "Because it's time you knew the truth about why I was really banished from the family." She opened the portfolio, revealing documents that made my heart skip. "Your grandmother didn't just leave you an inheritance, Marianne. She left you everything." "That's impossible," I said. "My parents said—" "Your parents lied." Patricia's voice hardened. Mother knew exactly what they were. She changed her will 6 months before she died, leaving her entire estate to you with specific conditions. I was named executor, which is why they had to get rid of me. She handed me a document, a copy of my grandmother's last will and testament. My hands shook as I read it. $2 million in investments. 3 properties, including the Victorian house on Maple Street I'd always admired. A portfolio of bonds, and letter after letter detailing why she disinherited my parents and Emma. "I don't understand," I whispered. "Grandma died when I was 13. Why didn't anyone tell me?" "Because your parents intercepted the legal notices," Patricia explained. "They told the lawyers you were mentally unstable and couldn't handle the inheritance until you were older. They've been living off your money for 10 years, Marianne. Every dollar they spent on Emma's education, every vacation, every luxury, it was yours." Sarah gasped beside me. I felt numb, unable to process this new betrayal. Patricia pulled out more documents. "I tried to fight them. I hired lawyers, filed complaints, but your parents had guardianship. They painted me as a greedy sister trying to steal their daughter's inheritance. The restraining order they got against me prevented any contact." "So you just gave up?" Anger flared through the numbness. "Never." Patricia's eyes flashed. "I became a private investigator specifically to document their fraud. Every forged document, every illegally accessed account, every penny they stole, I have records." She pulled out a thick folder. 10 years of evidence waiting for the day you were free of them. I flipped through the pages, each one another nail in my parents' coffin. Bank statements showing large transfers from accounts in my name. Forged signatures on investment liquidations. Property transfers that required my consent, given by parents who'd never told me I owned property. "This is why they were so desperate to keep me home," I said, understanding flooding through me. If I left, if I became independent, I might discover what they'd done. "The Singapore job terrified them," Patricia confirmed. "An international move would require proper documentation. Banks would need to verify identity. The house of cards would collapse." "Wait," Sarah interjected. "If Marianne owns that Victorian on Maple Street, why is she living in a converted pantry?" Patricia's laugh was bitter. "Because they rented out her properties and kept the income. $2,500 a month for the Victorian alone. The beach cottage brings in $4,000 during summer months. The commercial building downtown that's been leased to a law firm for $8,000 monthly." The numbers swam in my head. That's over $15,000 a month in rental income for 10 years. $1.8 million in rental income alone, Patricia confirmed. Plus the liquidated investments, the insurance fraud, the hospital discovered the tax fraud from claiming you as a dependent. While charging rent, your parents have stolen approximately $3.7 million from you. I stood abruptly, needing to move to process. How could they do this? I'm their daughter. "You were never their daughter," Patricia said gently. "You were their meal ticket. Your grandmother saw it before anyone else. That's why she protected you the only way she could, by leaving you everything and hoping you'd eventually break free to claim it." "I need proof," I said. "Real legal proof that will hold up in court." Patricia smiled, and this time it was genuine. "I've been a licensed investigator for 8 years. Every document is legally obtained, properly notarized with a clear chain of custody. I've also been in contact with your grandmother's original lawyer. He's been waiting to testify about how your parents manipulated the system." "There's more," she continued, pulling out a small key. "Your grandmother's safety deposit box at First National. Your parents have tried to access it dozens of times over the years, but Mother was clever. She required both the key and a DNA test for access. They couldn't forge your genetic material." I took the key with trembling fingers. "What's in it?" "I don't know," Patricia admitted. "Mother said it was for your eyes only, but knowing her, it's something that will help you reclaim your life." My phone buzzed. Marcus calling. "Marianne, I just got off the phone with the federal prosecutor. They're freezing your parents' assets based on the hospital's insurance fraud findings. And there's something else. Can your Aunt Patricia come to my office? I understand she has additional evidence. You know about Patricia? I asked. I've been coordinating with her for months, he admitted. We wanted to make sure when you were ready to leave, you'd have everything you needed to not just escape, but to reclaim what was stolen. I looked at Patricia, this aunt who'd been painted as a villain my entire adult life, who'd actually been fighting for me in the shadows. You've been planning this. Not planning your escape, that was all you, she clarified, but preparing for the aftermath? Yes. I knew eventually you'd find the strength to break free. I just wanted to make sure when you did, you'd have the ammunition to destroy them completely. Huicos, I had to know. Why go through all this trouble for 10 years? Patricia's composure finally cracked, tears gathering in her eyes. Because I failed you once. When you were 13 and vulnerable, I let them convince everyone I was the enemy. I let them isolate you. I couldn't save your childhood, but I swore I'd help you reclaim your future. Sarah had been quiet throughout, but now she spoke. Marianne, your flight to Singapore is in 3 hours. What do you want to do? I looked at the key in my hand, the document spread before me, the aunt who'd been my secret guardian angel. Then I thought about my family sitting in jail cells or panicking about frozen assets finally facing consequences for their actions. I'm getting on that plane, I decided. But first, we're going to the bank, then to Marcus's office to sign whatever needs signing. And Patricia, you're coming to Singapore for a visit once I'm settled. We have 10 years of catching up to do. Patricia smiled through her tears. I'd like that very much. As the sun fully rose, painting Sarah's living room in golden light, I felt the last pieces of my past clicking into place. My family had stolen money, property, and years of my life, but they'd failed to steal my future. And with Patricia's evidence and Marcus's legal expertise, I wasn't just escaping, I was about to reclaim everything they'd taken and more. The hunter had become the hunted, and justice was about to be served with 10 years of compound interest. Time moved with surreal speed as Sarah drove us to First National Bank. It was 6:30 a.m. and the bank wouldn't open until 8. But Patricia made a call, and within minutes, the bank manager himself arrived to meet us. Ms. Henderson, Mr. Thompson greeted Patricia warmly. I've been expecting this day for a decade. He turned to me with genuine sympathy. Ms. Walsh, I worked closely with your grandmother. She was a remarkable woman who loved you very much. Inside the bank's private vault room, Mr. Thompson led us to a safety deposit box that required both my key and a DNA swab. As the lock clicked open, I held my breath. The box contained 3 items, a thick envelope, a leather journal, and a USB drive. I opened the envelope first, finding a handwritten letter in my grandmother's distinctive script. My dearest Marianne, if you're reading this, you've finally broken free from them. I'm so proud of you. By now, Patricia has told you about the inheritance. But there's more you need to know. The journal contains my observations of your parents' treatment of you documented from when you were 3 years old. The USB contains recordings I made of their discussions about controlling you. I've also included contact information for 3 witnesses who will testify to their abuse and fraud. Use these to bury them, my dear. Love always, Grandma Helen. I opened the journal, scanning entries that made my stomach turn. Detailed accounts of neglect of my parents discussing how to keep me dependent of their plans, to use me as their personal servant while funding Emma's every whim. My grandmother had seen it all and documented everything. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat. There's something else. Your grandmother maintained a separate account here that your parents never knew about. She added to it monthly until her passing. He handed me a statement. The account held $200,000 in cash. Take it, Patricia urged. You'll need immediate funds while the legal battles sort out. My phone rang. Marcus, are you at the bank? Good. I need you at my office immediately. The prosecutor wants to file charges before your parents can move any hidden assets. Sarah checked the time. Marianne, your flight. I'll make it I said, my newfound determination surprising even me. At Marcus's office, controlled chaos reigned. Paralegals ran between rooms with documents. Marcus himself looked like he'd been up all night, which he probably had. Emma made bail an hour ago, he informed me. But here's the interesting part. Her boyfriend Jake is in the conference room. He wants to help. I walked into the room to find Jake looking haggard, clutching a box of documents. The golden boy who dated my sister for 2 years met my eyes with obvious shame. I'm sorry, he began. I knew what they were doing to you was wrong, but I was a coward. Emma said if I interfered, she'd ruin my career before it started. What changed? I asked. Seeing that video, watching them laugh about destroying your passport, I realized I was complicit in something evil. He pushed the box toward me. Emma kept copies of everything at my apartment. Forged documents, plans to frame you for theft, even a detailed timeline of how they'd gaslight you into believing you were mentally unstable if you tried to leave. Marcus immediately began examining the documents. This is comprehensive. She documented her own crimes. Jake laughed bitterly. Emma thought she was untouchable. She kept trophies of every person she'd conned. You weren't the only victim, Marianne, just the longest-running one. There's more, Jake continued, pulling out his phone. She's been texting me non-stop since making bail, threatening me, admitting to more crimes, trying to get me to destroy evidence. He showed us the messages, Emma's panic laid bare in digital form. Marcus smiled grimly. She just added witness tampering and obstruction of justice to her charges. The next hour blurred together. I signed affidavits, gave recorded statements, and authorized Marcus to act on my behalf while I was in Singapore. Patricia co-signed as a witness to everything. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Linda Rodriguez, who turned out to be Ms. Rodriguez's daughter, assured me they had enough to put my parents away for years. The FBI is particularly interested in the interstate fraud components, she explained. Your parents used your social security number to open credit cards in multiple states. That elevates this to federal RICO charges. RICO, I asked. Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, she clarified. Basically, we're treating your family like the criminal enterprise they are. Sarah had been monitoring the time. We need to leave now or you'll miss your flight. As we prepared to leave, Jake stopped me. Marianne, I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. It's the least I can do. I studied him, this man who'd watched my abuse for 2 years and done nothing until it affected him. I don't forgive you, I said honestly, but I appreciate your help now. The ride to the airport was quiet. Sarah focused on navigating morning traffic, while Patricia made calls to ensure my properties would be secured. In the back seat, I clutched my real passport, the one my family never knew existed. At the departure terminal, Sarah hugged me fiercely. I'm so proud of you. Go live your dreams. Patricia handed me a new phone. My number's programmed. So is Marcus's, Linda Rodriguez's, and a therapist in Singapore who specializes in family trauma. Use them. What about my stuff? I suddenly panicked. My clothes, my... Already handled, Sarah grinned. I shipped 3 boxes to your Singapore address last week. Everything that mattered. As I walked toward security, my old phone rang. Emma's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. You've ruined everything, she screamed. I'm going to be disbarred before I even take the bar. Mom's having a breakdown. Dad's facing 20 years. How could you do this to us? I didn't do anything, I replied calmly. You did this when you decided I was worthless. When you stole from me. When you destroyed my passport. I just stopped letting you. Where are you? She demanded. We need to talk. Fix this. You owe us... I hung up and blocked her number, then my parents' numbers, then every extended family member who'd enabled them. With each block, I felt lighter. Ma'am, the security agent was waiting. Passport, please. I handed over my document, my real name, my real identity, my real future. As I walked through security, I heard them calling my flight. First class to Singapore, courtesy of Globecorp's relocation package. I settled into my seat, and for the first time in 23 years, I felt truly safe. My family was facing justice. My inheritance was being recovered. My new life waited on the other side of the ocean. The flight attendant offered champagne. I accepted, raising my glass in a silent toast to Grandma Helen, Aunt Patricia, Sarah, Ms. Rodriguez, Marcus, and everyone who'd helped me escape. Then I toasted myself for surviving, for fighting, for finally spreading my wings. As the plane lifted off, I watched my hometown shrink below. Somewhere down there, my family was discovering that their house of cards had collapsed. But I was ascending, flying toward a future they'd tried to steal but couldn't destroy. I opened my laptop, a new one Sarah had surprised me with, and began typing my first report for Globe Corps. My new life had officially begun, and I was ready to soar. The flight to Singapore included a layover in Los Angeles, where I had to change planes for the international leg. As I made my way through LAX, my new phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Your mother and Emma are violating bail. They're heading to the airport. Security has been notified." My blood ran cold. How did they know which flight I was on? Then I remembered Emma had been monitoring my emails for months. She probably had my entire itinerary memorized. I quickened my pace toward the international terminal, grateful for the TSA checkpoint that would keep them at bay. But as I rounded a corner, I spotted them near the check-in counters. My mother looked disheveled, her usually perfect hair tangled makeup streaked from crying. Emma stood beside her wearing sunglasses indoors and a baseball cap, as if that would somehow hide her from the security cameras recording their bail violation. They hadn't seen me yet. I ducked into a shop, pretending to browse magazines while keeping them in view. My mother was arguing with an airline employee, her voice carrying even from 50 feet away. "I need to see the passenger list," she demanded. "My daughter is having a mental health crisis. She's delusional, thinks we're trying to hurt her. We just want to help her get treatment." The airline employee remained professional but firm. "Ma'am, I cannot share passenger information. If you're concerned about someone's welfare, you need to contact the authorities." Emma leaned over the counter. "We are her family. Doesn't that mean anything anymore? She's sick, confused. She's been manipulated by people who want her money." I almost laughed at the irony. They were describing themselves. My phone rang. Linda Rodriguez. "Marianne, are you safe? We got an alert that they're at LAX. "I can see them," I whispered. "They're at the check-in counter trying to find out which flight I'm on." "Airport security is on the way. Stay where you are and out of sight." Through the shop window, I watched 2 TSA officers approach my mother and Emma. The conversation appeared heated, with my mother gesturing wildly and Emma pulling out her phone, likely trying to show them something that would support their lies. Then Emma spotted me. Our eyes met through the shop window and her face contorted with rage. She broke away from the TSA officers running toward me. "There she is!" she screamed. "That's my mentally ill sister. Stop her!" I stepped out of the shop, standing tall. Running would only make me look guilty. The TSA officers quickly intercepted Emma before she could reach me, but she kept screaming. "She's stolen from us. She's having delusions. Check her bag. She probably has drugs. She's been talking to people who don't exist." Passengers stopped to stare at the spectacle. Some pulled out phones to record. Within seconds, this would be all over social media, just like last night's video. "Ma'am, please calm down," one officer said to Emma. To me, he asked, "Are you okay? Do you know these women?" "They're my mother and sister," I confirmed calmly. "They're currently out on bail for destroying my passport and assaulting me. They're not supposed to have any contact with me." "She's lying," my mother wailed, finally reaching us. "Officer, I'm her mother. I know what's best for her. She needs help, not Singapore. Please, just let us talk to her." "Do you have a restraining order?" the officer asked me. I pulled up the emergency order on my phone, showing him the documentation. His expression hardened as he read it. Ma'am," he addressed my mother, "you're in violation of a court order. You need to leave immediately or we'll have to detain you." I'm not leaving without my daughter, my mother declared, grabbing my arm. The next moments unfolded like a scene from a movie. The officers moved to separate us. My mother held on tighter, her nails digging into my skin, just like Emma's had the night before. Emma tried to grab my carry-on bag, screaming about checking it for evidence of her mental illness. "She's being trafficked," Emma suddenly announced to the gathering crowd. "This is human trafficking. They're taking her against her will." The accusation was so outrageous, so desperate, that even the onlookers seemed skeptical. One woman nearby actually laughed. "Lady, she's clearly an adult with a plane ticket." More security arrived, including airport police. My mother and Emma were separated from me, but they kept shouting accusations. Mental illness, drugs, trafficking, theft. Each lie more elaborate than the last, desperately throwing everything at the wall to see what might stick. "Can you prove you're traveling of your own free will?" one of the airport police asked me quietly. I showed him my employment contract with Globecorp, my passport, my tickets. "I'm starting a new job. They destroyed my first passport trying to stop me. It's all documented in the police reports from last night." He reviewed everything, then nodded. "You're free to go to your gate. We'll handle them." As I walked away, Emma's voice rose to a shriek. "You'll regret this, Marianne. When you're alone in Singapore with no family, no one who loves you, you'll come crawling back, and we won't be there. You're dead to us." I turned back one last time. "I was never alive to you. I was just a resource to exploit. But thank you for making this easier. Every word you're screaming is being recorded. Every lie, every threat. You're adding years to your sentences with every breath." My mother collapsed dramatically, clutching her chest. "My heart, I'm having a heart attack." The same performance she'd given 100 times before when she wasn't getting her way. The EMTs who arrived looked thoroughly unimpressed when her heart attack miraculously improved the moment she realized she was actually being arrested. As security led them away in handcuffs again, I heard Emma still ranting about mental illness and trafficking. My mother had switched to loud prayers asking God to save her lost daughter from the devils who'd stolen her away. At my gate, I discovered I'd become minor celebrity. Other passengers who'd witnessed the scene offered support and congratulations on escaping what was clearly a toxic situation. The gate agent upgraded me to business class for the inconvenience. "I saw the video from last night," she confided. "Your neighbor's recording. My whole family watched it. We're rooting for you." As I settled into the business class lounge to wait for boarding, my phone lit up with messages. The airport scene had indeed gone viral, adding to the previous night's footage. Entitled, "Family Has Meltdown at LAX" was already trending. Linda Rodriguez called again. "They've been arrested for violating bail, making false reports, and disturbing the peace. The trafficking accusation means the FBI will be investigating them for filing false federal reports. They just can't stop digging their own graves." "What happens now?" I asked. "Now they sit in federal holding until their new bail hearing. Given that they violated the first bail immediately, I doubt they'll get another chance. Your father's probably going to have some interesting cellmates tonight." The thought of my controlling father locked up with actual criminals should have brought me satisfaction. Instead, I felt only emptiness where family feelings should have been. They'd killed those emotions long ago with their cruelty. A text from Jake arrived, saw the airport video. "Emma's completely lost it. For what it's worth, I've turned over more evidence. Found records of 6 other people she scammed over the years. You were just her longest con." Boarding was called for my flight. As I walked down the jetway, I felt the last threads connecting me to my old life snap. My family had made their final play and lost spectacularly. Their very public meltdown had ensured everyone would know exactly who they were. Not the respectable family they'd pretended to be, but criminals who'd abused their daughter for profit. The flight attendant welcomed me aboard with a warm smile. "Singapore is beautiful this time of year, business or pleasure." "My new beginning," I replied. She smiled wider. Those are the best kind of trips. As the plane pushed back from the gate, I turned off my phone. For the next 16 hours, I would be unreachable, flying over the Pacific toward my new life. Down below, my family would be discovering that their final gambit had failed. Their desperation had only added more charges, more evidence, more proof of their guilt. I'd worried they might find a way to stop me, but in the end, they'd only stop themselves. Every action they'd taken to keep me trapped had become another bar in their own cage. And as the plane lifted into the California sky, I left them behind to face the consequences of 23 years of cruelty. The little bird they'd tried to cage was finally flying free, and no amount of screaming from the ground could call her back. 16 hours later, I walked through Changi Airport in a daze of exhaustion and exhilaration. The modern architecture, the indoor waterfall, the efficiency of everything. It was a world away from the chaos I'd left behind. At immigration, the officer stamped my passport with a satisfying thunk. "Welcome to Singapore, Ms. Walsh. Purpose of visit." "Employment pass. I'm starting work at Globecorp." His face brightened. "Excellent company. Welcome to your new home." New home. The word sent a thrill through me as I collected my luggage and found the driver Globecorp had sent. The ride to my temporary apartment was a blur of gleaming skyscrapers and tropical greenery. The apartment took my breath away. On the 20th floor with a view of Marina Bay, it was larger than my parents' entire house. Modern furniture, a full kitchen floor-to-ceiling windows that made the space feel infinite. After 23 years in a converted pantry, it felt like a palace. I'd barely set down my bags when my new phone rang. Amanda Chen, my supervisor at Globecorp. "Marianne, I hope you're settling in. I know you must be exhausted, but I wanted to personally welcome you and let you know we're all behind you. We saw the news coverage. What your family did was unconscionable." "Thank you." I managed, still processing that my new employer had seen my family's public meltdown. "Take tomorrow to rest and adjust. When you're ready, we'd like to discuss additional support. Globecorp has an excellent legal team, and we're prepared to assist with any international complications from your family situation. Also, our CEO would like to meet with you personally when you come in." After the call, I stood at the windows, watching the sun set over Singapore's skyline. My phone showed 53 missed calls from unknown numbers, likely reporters or extended family. I ignored them all, instead texting Sarah Patricia and Marcus that I'd arrived safely. Patricia responded immediately. "The house is secured. Locks changed. Your parents' belongings are in storage pending the investigation. Also, I found something interesting in the attic. Your grandmother kept every report card, every award, every piece of art you made as a child. She was so proud of you." The tears came then for the grandmother who'd seen my worth when my parents couldn't, for the childhood stolen, for the young woman who'd believed she was worthless for so long, but also tears of relief, of joy, of freedom. That first week in Singapore passed in a whirlwind. I met my team at Globecorp, brilliant, welcoming people who treated me as a valuable colleague, not a servant. My CEO, James Liu, took me to lunch on my third day. "I want you to know," he said over expensive sushi, "that Globecorp values talent and character. What I've seen of both tells me you're exactly who we want on our team. The signing bonus should help with immediate expenses while your legal situation is resolved." The signing bonus was $50,000, more money than I'd ever seen at once. I stared at the bank notification, remembering how I'd had to beg for $20 to buy work shoes 6 months ago. But the real shock came from Marcus's daily updates. The investigation into my family had uncovered a web of crimes spanning decades. My parents had defrauded not just me, but 3 other elderly relatives. Emma's scams included identity theft, credit card fraud, and even selling fake charity raffle tickets. "The FBI found your father's hidden accounts," Marcus reported during a video call. "He's been skimming from his employer for 15 years. Your family's crimes have nothing to do with keeping you home. That was just their most visible con. Jake continued cooperating, turning over evidence that painted an even darker picture. Emma had detailed plans to have me declared mentally incompetent if I ever tried to leave, complete with a doctor she'd bribed to provide false testimony. The prosecutor says it's one of the most comprehensive abuse cases she's ever seen, Marcus explained. Your recordings, Patricia's investigation, the hospital evidence, Jake's documents, it's bulletproof. 2 weeks into my new life, I was working late on my first major project when security called. Ms. Walsh, there's someone here claiming to be your sister. My blood froze. Don't let her up. I'll come down. In the lobby, Emma stood with 2 security guards. She looked terrible: hair, unwashed designer clothes replaced with ill-fitting jeans and a stained sweatshirt. The entitled princess was gone, replaced by someone desperate and disheveled. "How did you get here?" I asked, staying well back. "Jake posted my bail," she said, her voice hoarse. "I maxed out the last credit card to buy a ticket. Marianne, please, I need help. They froze everything. The house is gone. Mom's in psychiatric hold. Dad's in federal prison. I have nothing." "You have what you always gave me," I replied. "Nothing." "I'm your sister," she cried. "Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant something to me for 23 years, I said. "It never meant anything to you. Security, please escort her out. If she returns, call the police." "You can't just abandon me," Emma screamed as security moved her toward the door. "I'll die on the streets. Is that what you want?" "You'll survive," I called back. "People are surprisingly resilient when they have to be. Maybe you'll even get 3 jobs and learn what actual work feels like." The last I saw of Emma was her being put in a police car after she'd refused to leave the building. She'd violated her bail again by leaving the country. This time, she'd serve real time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked to the window and looked out at the glittering lights of Singapore. Somewhere out there, people were living normal lives with normal families. They'd never understand the freedom I felt, the lightness of finally being alone. My phone buzzed, an email from the prosecutor. My parents had both pled guilty to avoid trial, hoping for lighter sentences. My mother got 5 years. My father got 12. Emma's trial would proceed, but with the evidence against her, conviction was certain. I thought I'd feel something: triumph, maybe, or vindication. Instead, I felt only relief that it was over. They'd made their choices. Now they'd live with the consequences. A month after arriving, I stood before a judge via video link to provide my victim impact statement. I spoke about years of servitude, of dreams deferred, of childhood stolen. But I also spoke about resilience, about choosing hope over bitterness, about building a life of purpose from the ashes of abuse. "Your Honor," I concluded, "they tried to clip my wings. Instead, they taught me how to fly. I hope the court's decision reflects not just justice for what was done, but protection for others who might suffer similar fates." Emma was sentenced to 8 years with mandatory restitution. The judge called the case a shocking betrayal of family trust and systematic destruction of a young woman's potential. As the video link ended, I realized I'd never have to see them again, never have to hear their voices or dodge their manipulation. The cage door wasn't just open, the cage itself had been dismantled. That evening, my Globe Corps team took me out to celebrate the end of the legal proceedings. As we toasted with Singapore slings at a rooftop bar, my colleague Priya asked, "How do you feel?" I considered the question, looking out at the city I now called home. "Free," I said simply, "for the first time in my life, completely free." And I was. Free to succeed or fail on my own terms. Free to make friends who valued me. Free to build a life undefined by others' cruelty. Free to discover who Marianne Walsh really was when she wasn't just surviving. The girl who'd been told she was nothing had become something entirely on her own, and that was the greatest revenge of all. 3 months into my Singapore life, I was thriving in ways I'd never imagined possible. My work at Globecorp had earned recognition from senior leadership, and I'd been promoted to lead a new regional marketing initiative. But the real transformation was personal. I'd started therapy, made genuine friends, and learned what it felt like to be valued for who I was, not what I could do for others. That's when Patricia called with news that would change everything again. Marianne, we've finally gotten access to all the financial records. You need to see this. Can you video call? I connected from my apartment, and Patricia appeared on screen alongside Marcus and a man I didn't recognize, elderly, distinguished with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. This is Robert Hartley. Patricia introduced. He was your grandmother's attorney. He's been waiting 13 years to speak with you. Mr. Hartley leaned forward. Miss Walsh, your grandmother was one of the wisest women I've ever known. She saw what was happening to you and took extraordinary steps to protect your future. What we've uncovered goes beyond what anyone imagined. He shared his screen showing financial documents that made my head spin. Your grandmother didn't just leave you her existing assets. She created a trust that's been growing for 13 years. She funded it with her pension, Social Security, and investment returns, all structured to be untouchable by your parents. The base inheritance was $2 million, Marcus explained, but with 13 years of compound interest and careful management, it's now worth $4.8 million. I gripped my coffee cup to keep my hands from shaking. 4.8 million hub. That's just the trust, Patricia added. The properties have appreciated significantly. The Victorian on Maple Street is now valued at 1.2 million. The beach cottage is worth 2.3 million. The commercial building downtown just had its lease renewed at $12,000 monthly. Mr. Hartley pulled up another document. There's more. Your grandmother owned intellectual property patents from your grandfather's engineering work. They generate approximately $200,000 annually in licensing fees. She also had a stake in a tech startup that went public 5 years ago. That stake is now worth $6 million. The numbers became meaningless. How could I process going from begging for grocery money to having $15 million in assets? Your parents knew about some of this, Mr. Hartley continued, his voice hardening. They've been intercepting the licensing payments and rental income for years, but they could never access the principal or the startup stake because your grandmother required DNA verification for any major transactions. How did they explain the money? I asked. They claimed it was from your father's business, Patricia said. But forensic accounting shows his company has been losing money for a decade. Every luxury, every vacation, Emma's entire education, all funded by stealing from you. Marcus took over. With the criminal convictions, we can now pursue full restitution. The federal asset forfeiture laws mean we can recover not just what they stole, but penalties and interest. Conservative estimate, another 3 to 4 million. I don't understand, I said weakly. Why didn't Grandma just give it to me directly when I turned 18? Mr. Hartley's expression was sad. She tried. She sent registered letters to your college, but they were returned. She attempted to visit, but your parents had convinced local authorities she was suffering from dementia. She even hired a private investigator, but your parents threatened legal action. So she got creative. Patricia continued. She knew they'd eventually overplay their hand, that you'd break free. She structured everything so that when you did, you'd have immediate access to resources they couldn't touch. There's one more thing, Mr. Hartley said, pulling out a sealed envelope. Your grandmother left this for you to be opened only when you were free and safe. Patricia brought it to Singapore herself. I hadn't even noticed the envelope in Patricia's hands on the video call. She held it up to the camera. I'm sending this by secure courier. It should arrive tomorrow. The next day, I signed for the package with trembling hands. Inside was a letter in my grandmother's handwriting along with a small key. My dearest Marianne, the letter began. If you're reading this, you've done what I always knew you would. You've spread your wings and flown. I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. By now you know about the money, but wealth was never the point. The point was freedom. The point was making sure that when you were ready to become who you're meant to be, nothing could stop you. The key opens a safety deposit box at the Bank of Singapore. Inside, you'll find something more valuable than money. You'll find proof of how loved you've always been. I'm sorry I couldn't save you sooner, but I never stopped believing that you'd save yourself. Use these resources not just for your own life, but to help other young women trapped as you were. Turn our family's pain into purpose. All my love, Grandma Helen. I went to the Bank of Singapore that afternoon. The safety deposit box contained photo albums I'd never seen, pictures of me as a child, happy and carefree before the abuse intensified. Letters my grandmother had written to me over the years, but never sent, documenting her love and her pain at being kept from me. And a final surprise, a deed to a property in Singapore purchased 5 years ago. "How is?" I whispered to the empty room. A note was attached. "I knew you'd need to go far to be free. This apartment is yours, a sanctuary they could never touch. Welcome home, my dear one." The apartment was in the same building where GlobeCorp had placed me temporarily. My grandmother had somehow known I'd end up in Singapore, had prepared a home for me in the city where I'd find my freedom. That evening, I met with a financial advisor Patricia had recommended. We discussed setting up my own foundation for abuse survivors, how to manage the wealth responsibly, how to honor my grandmother's wishes while building my own life. "With your assets and the incoming restitution, you never need to work again," he said. "But I want to work," I replied. "I love what I do. For the first time in my life, I'm doing something because I choose to, not because I have to." A week later, I hosted a video call with everyone who'd helped me escape. Sarah, Patricia, Marcus, Miss Rodriguez. Even Jake, who'd completed his testimony and was rebuilding his own life away from my sister's influence. "I want to start a foundation," I announced, "for people trapped in financially abusive families. Legal aid, emergency housing, job placement therapy, everything I needed and didn't have for so long." "The Marianne Walsh Freedom Foundation," Sarah suggested. "The Helen Walsh Freedom Foundation," I corrected. "After my grandmother, she saved me before I even knew I needed saving." Patricia wiped away tears. "She would be so proud." "We all are," Ms. Rodriguez added. "You've turned pain into power." That night, I stood in my grandmother's apartment, my apartment looking out at the Singapore skyline. $15 million in assets, a thriving career, true friends, freedom. Everything my family had tried to steal returned tenfold. But the real inheritance wasn't money. It was the knowledge that I'd been loved all along, that someone had seen my worth when I couldn't see it myself. My grandmother's patient, strategic love had outlasted my family's cruelty. I thought about Emma serving her 8-year sentence, my mother in minimum security but still imprisoned, my father facing more than a decade behind bars. They'd had everything a daughter who would have loved them, a mother willing to share her wealth, a life of comfort and ease. They'd thrown it all away for control. Now I had everything they'd wanted and more. But most importantly, I had what they'd never understood, the knowledge that real wealth isn't about money or control. It's about freedom, dignity, and the space to become who you're meant to be. My phone buzzed with a text from Priya, my colleague, who'd become a close friend. "Dinner tomorrow? Found a new place that serves amazing laksa." "Absolutely," I replied, smiling at the simple pleasure of making plans with a friend who wanted nothing from me but my company. This was wealth. This was inheritance. This was the life my grandmother had envisioned for me, not just free from abuse, but free to thrive, to love, to trust, to build something beautiful from the ashes of what had been burned. The girl who'd been told she was nothing now had everything. And she was just getting started. 6 months had passed since my arrival in Singapore. The Helen Walsh Freedom Foundation was officially registered, and we'd already helped 12 women escape abusive situations. I'd hired a small team, including a director who'd escaped her own financially abusive family. My life had purpose beyond my own survival now. That's when Marcus called with updates that showed just how far my family had fallen. The forensic accounting is complete, he said during our monthly video call. Your parents' fraud goes back 25 years. They've been stealing from relatives, employers, even their church. Their church. I couldn't hide my surprise. My parents had always portrayed themselves as pillars of the religious community. Your father was treasurer for 15 years. He embezzled over $300,000 from the building fund. The congregation is devastated. Apparently, he convinced elderly members to donate to fake mission trips that funded Emma's lifestyle. Patricia joined the call. The house is being sold at auction next week. The proceeds will go toward restitution. Their cars, jewelry, everything is being liquidated. But here's the interesting part: your mother has been sending letters from prison. To me, my stomach tightened. No to everyone in town. She's claiming you're part of an international conspiracy to destroy good Christian families. The letters are unhinged. She mentions Singapore being a hub for trafficking and suggests you've been brainwashed by communists. I laughed despite myself. Communist Singapore. Has she ever Googled this place? The best part, Sir Marcus added, is that the local newspaper published excerpts alongside facts about the case. Your mother's letters actually helped the prosecution by demonstrating complete lack of remorse or grasp on reality. What about Emma, I asked? Marcus pulled up documents. She's had a rough adjustment to prison. Apparently, she tried to run the same manipulation games on other inmates. It didn't go well. She's been transferred to solitary for her own protection after attempting to blackmail the wrong person. Jake had been keeping Marcus informed about the ripple effects in our hometown. He sent videos of the family house being emptied, my parents' possessions tagged and cataloged for auction, the dining table where they'd plotted my captivity, the recliners where they'd lounged while I served them, the artwork purchased with stolen money, all reduced to lot numbers. Your extended family is turning on each other, Patricia reported. Uncle Jeffrey is suing your parents for the $50,000 they borrowed for Emma's law school. Cousin Martha wants the jewelry your mother borrowed for special occasions. It's a feeding frenzy. Good, I said, surprising myself with the hardness in my voice. Let them tear each other apart. But the real shock came when Marcus revealed what they'd found in my father's office. He kept journals, detailed records of every manipulation, every theft, every time they broke you down. He was proud of it, Marianne. He wrote about training you like you were an animal, about how satisfying it was to see you accept your place. I had to mute myself as waves of nausea hit. All those years of gaslighting, being told I was crazy for thinking they treated me badly, and he'd been documenting his abuse like trophies. The prosecutor wants to use excerpts at the restitution hearing, Marcus continued. It shows clear malice and forethought, but only if you're comfortable with them being read in court. Read every word, I said firmly. Let everyone know exactly who they were. 3 weeks later, I watched the restitution hearing via video link. My parents appeared on screen in orange jumpsuits, shackled and diminished. My mother had lost weight, her hair gray without its expensive dye jobs. My father looked older, his commanding presence reduced to slouched shoulders and darting eyes. The prosecutor read from his journals. The courtroom gasped at entries like, Marianne tried to apply for scholarships today, destroyed the applications, can't have her thinking she deserves education. And the girl asked for birthday presents, laughed, and told her servants don't get gifts. The look on her face was priceless. Even the judge seemed shaken. In 30 years on the bench, I've rarely seen such calculated cruelty toward one's own child, he said. When it came time for my parents to speak, my mother launched into a rambling speech about being persecuted for her faith, about children owing obedience to parents, about how I destroyed the family with my selfish ambitions. My father said nothing, just stared at the table. Emma appeared via video from her facility. She looked terrible, hollow-eyed, her designer image replaced by prison gray. When asked if she had anything to say, she spoke in a monotone, "I've lost everything because of her. My future, my career, my life. I hope she's satisfied." The judge's response was sharp. Ms. Walsh lost everything because of her own criminal actions. The victim here showed remarkable restraint in not pursuing additional charges that could have resulted in life imprisonment. The restitution order was comprehensive, immediate liquidation of all assets, garnishment of any future earnings, and transfer of all intellectual property rights. The final amount came to $8.7 million, including penalties and interest. "Your parents will likely die in debt," Marcus explained afterward. "Every penny they earn will go toward restitution. Emma will exit prison with nothing and a felony record that bars her from ever practicing law." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. They destroyed themselves so thoroughly, so completely, all for the illusion of control over someone they'd never seen as human. A month later, Sarah visited Singapore. We sat in my grandmother's apartment, drinking wine and catching up. She showed me photos from home, including one that stopped my heart. "Is that—" I couldn't finish. "Your childhood home being demolished," she confirmed. "The new owners are building something else. No one wanted to live in a house with that history." The photo showed excavators tearing through walls that had witnessed decades of abuse. My converted pantry bedroom reduced to rubble. The kitchen where I'd cooked thousands of meals while being told I was worthless. All of it becoming dust. "The whole town knows now," Sarah continued. "Your father's business partners, your mother's church friends. Everyone who enabled them, they're all distancing themselves, claiming they never knew, they never saw signs. But we both know they did. They just didn't care." "What about Emma's friends?" I asked. Gone. Turns out when you can't buy drinks and designer goods, those friendships evaporate. Jake says she writes him constantly from prison, begging for money, swearing she's changed. He doesn't respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked to my window and looked out at Singapore's lights, thinking about the demolition photo. The physical structure that had caged me was gone, reduced to debris and hauled away. My family was scattered across prisons, their crimes exposed, their facades shattered. They'd spent decades building a careful image, the successful family with the devoted daughter caring for them. Now the whole world knew the truth. They weren't a family wronged by an ungrateful child. They were criminals who tortured their daughter for profit and control. My phone buzzed with a notification from the foundation. Another young woman trapped by her family's financial abuse reaching out for help. I opened her message and began typing a response, offering the resources and support I desperately needed. This was my life now, not defined by what had been done to me, but by what I could do for others. My family had fallen, but from their ashes, something meaningful had grown. Every woman we helped escape was another victory over the darkness they'd represented. The Walsh family name, once used to intimidate and control me now, stood for something else entirely. The Helen Walsh Freedom Foundation was becoming known for giving hope to the hopeless, for showing trapped women that escape was possible. My parents had wanted a legacy. They'd gotten one, just not the one they'd envisioned. They'd be remembered as cautionary tale, a warning about what happens when family becomes exploitation. But my grandmother's name would be remembered for love, strategy, and freedom. As dawn broke over Singapore, I prepared for another day at both GlobeCorp and the Foundation. My family's downfall was complete, but my rise was just beginning. And that was the greatest justice of all. 1 year. That's how long I'd been gone when the federal prosecutor called with news that would bring me back to American soil. Marianne, the trial's set for next month. Your parents are appealing their sentences claiming ineffective counsel and coercion. Emma's also appealing. Their new strategy is to paint you as the mastermind who framed them. They're claiming I framed them. I almost laughed. With their own words, their own actions. Desperate people make desperate arguments, but that's why we need you here. Your testimony will be crucial. Plus, there's something else the town wants to honor you. Oh, honor me. Now I was truly confused. Linda Rodriguez took over the call. The Helen Walsh Freedom Foundation has helped 3 local women escape abusive situations. The City Council wants to present you with a citizenship award. Your story inspired others to speak up. We've uncovered 2 other families running similar abuse schemes. I booked my flight with mixed emotions. Singapore had become home in ways I'd never imagined. My apartment overlooked the bay, my work fulfilled me, my friendships sustained me. Returning to the place where I'd been broken felt like voluntarily walking back into a nightmare. But I wasn't the same person who'd fled in terror a year ago. I was vice president of regional marketing at GlobeCorp. I was founder of a foundation helping abuse survivors. I was someone who'd learned her worth had nothing to do with others' opinions. The flight felt shorter than I remembered. As the plane descended into my hometown airport, I saw familiar landscapes with new eyes. The streets that had felt like prison walls were just streets. The buildings that had loomed large in my nightmares were just buildings. Sarah met me at arrivals, tears streaming as she hugged me. "You look amazing. Success suits you." She wasn't wrong. Designer clothes that I'd bought because I like them, not to impress anyone. Professional styling because I deserved to feel confident. The exhausted servant girl was gone, replaced by a woman who knew her value. The hotel felt surreal. The same establishment where my family had celebrated Emma's achievements while I served them. Now I had the penthouse suite GlobeCorp covering all expenses as they supported their employee through legal proceedings. That evening, Ms. Rodriguez hosted a dinner in my honor. The woman who'd saved me with her timely recording had become a foundation board member, helping us identify and extract victims from abusive homes. 27 women saved so far, she announced to the gathered supporters. Each one because Marianne turned her pain into purpose. Jake attended looking healthier than I'd ever seen him. Testifying against Emma was the best decision I ever made, he told me. It forced me to examine my own complicity. I'm in therapy now, learning about enablement and toxic relationships. Patricia had flown in from California, where she now ran the foundation's West Coast operations. We've had inquiries from abuse survivors in 12 countries. Your story went global, Marianne. You've given hope to thousands. The next morning, I visited my grandmother's grave for the first time in years. My parents had banned me from her funeral, claiming I was too emotional. Now I laid flowers on her headstone, whispering updates about the foundation bearing her name. You saved me, I told the carved granite. Your love outlasted their hate. Every woman we help is part of your legacy. The citizenship ceremony was held at City Hall, the same building where my family had manipulated legal systems to keep me trapped. Now I stood at a podium addressing a crowd that included many who'd turned blind eyes to my abuse. This award doesn't erase the past, I began. It doesn't absolve those who saw my suffering and chose silence, but it represents something important. The power of transformation. My family tried to break me. This community largely let them, but a few brave souls didn't. Ms. Rodriguez, who recorded evidence, Sarah, who provided sanctuary, Marcus Chen, who fought for justice. They show us that one person choosing courage can change everything. I announced a new foundation initiative, a local safe house for women escaping abuse. The building, my parents' former home, purchased at auction and transformed from a site of horror into a haven of hope. Where I was once held prisoner, other women will find freedom, I declared. Where I was told I was worthless, others will discover their value. This is how we heal, by transforming our pain into purpose. The applause felt hollow, from some, genuine from others. I didn't care. This wasn't about them. It was about the young woman in the audience whose bruises were carefully hidden, who'd hear my story and realize escape was possible. The trial began 3 days later. My parents had new attorneys, public defenders, since they'd exhausted their resources on the previous legal team. Their strategy became clear immediately, painting me as a manipulative daughter who'd orchestrated elaborate revenge for minor family disputes. "Isn't it true," my father's attorney challenged, "that you secretly recorded your family for years, planning to use it against them?" "I documented abuse for protection," I replied calmly, "the same way someone might document a stalker or an assailant, because that's what they were." Emma's attorney tried a different approach. "You're worth millions now. Doesn't that seem like quite the coincidence? Poor abuse victim suddenly inherits vast wealth." "My grandmother left me that inheritance to protect me from them," I responded. "They stole from it for years. Every document proves this. Unless you're suggesting my grandmother, Patricia, Mr. Hartley, Marcus Chen, the FBI, and the federal prosecutor are all part of my elaborate conspiracy." The prosecutor played my father's journal entries. His own words condemned him more thoroughly than any testimony could. The courtroom heard him describe psychological torture techniques, financial manipulation strategies, his satisfaction at my suffering. My mother took the stand, claiming religious persecution. She quoted Bible verses about honoring parents, about children's duty to obey. The prosecutor's response was devastating, reading scripture about parents not provoking their children to wrath, about love being patient and kind. Emma's testimony was the most pathetic. Gone was her arrogance, replaced by sniveling attempts at sympathy. She claimed I'd always been jealous that she'd been forced to participate by our parents, that she was a victim too. The prosecutor's cross-examination was brutal. Email after email showing Emma's enthusiastic participation, her journal entries celebrating successful manipulations, the credit card fraud victim she destroyed for fun, the plans to have me institutionalized. "You weren't forced," the prosecutor concluded. "You were the architect of many of these schemes. Your parents may have started the abuse, but you perfected it." The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. The appeal denied. Sentences upheld with additional time for perjury during the trial. As they were led away in shackles, my mother screamed about forgiveness, about family, about God's judgment. My father said nothing, shuffling away like the broken bully he'd always been underneath. Emma sobbed, but they were tears of self-pity, not remorse. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I'd prepared a statement. Today, justice was served, but justice isn't revenge. It's accountability. My parents and sister made choices every day for decades. They chose cruelty over kindness, control over love, greed over family. These are the consequences of those choices. I hope others in similar situations see this and know you can break free. You can rebuild. You can transform pain into purpose. The Helen Walsh Freedom Foundation stands ready to help anyone trapped as I was. Because the best revenge isn't punishment, it's living magnificently, despite those who tried to destroy you. That evening, the foundation hosted a fundraiser. We raised $300,000 for the safe house. Former victims shared their stories. Local businesses pledged support. The mayor officially proclaimed it Helen Walsh Day, honoring my grandmother's legacy. Patricia and I stood on the renovation site of my childhood home. Construction workers had already begun the transformation. Where my pantry prison had been a counseling room would stand. The kitchen of my servitude would become a communal space for healing. From horror to hope, Patricia murmured. Helen would be so proud. As my return flight lifted off, I looked down at the town that had once been my entire world, so small from above, so insignificant compared to the life I'd built. My family served their time in cells smaller than the pantry they'd forced me into, but I soared across oceans, building dreams they'd tried to destroy. The woman returning to Singapore was not a victim running from her past. She was a survivor who'd faced her demons and won. She was proof that roaches don't deserve wings, but when you're not a roach, when you're a phoenix who survived the fire, your wings can carry you anywhere. And mine were carrying me home, not to a place of birth, but to a place of rebirth, to Singapore where Mary Ann Walsh had learned to soar. 2 years had passed since that night of shattered passport pieces. I stood in my Singapore office, now expanded to occupy the entire top floor of GlobeCorp's Asia-Pacific headquarters. The Helen Walsh Freedom Foundation operated from the adjoining building, having helped over 300 women escape abusive situations across 15 countries. My desk held 2 items that symbolized my journey: the plastic bag containing my destroyed passport, now framed as a reminder of the night everything changed, and a photo from last week's foundation gala where we'd raised $2 million for expansion. "The documentary crew is here," my assistant announced. Netflix had approached us about creating a limited series on financial abuse within families, using my story as the centerpiece. I'd agreed, but only if the focus remained on education and empowering survivors, not sensationalizing trauma. The director, a woman who'd escaped her own toxic family, understood the vision. "We want to show that abuse isn't always bruises," she explained as cameras were set up. "Sometimes it's being told you're worthless, so often you believe it. Sometimes it's having your dreams systematically destroyed by those who claim to love you." As I told my story on camera, the whole story from childhood servitude to international success, I felt the last chains of shame dissolve. There was power in speaking truth without apology, in refusing to protect those who'd harmed you. "Where are they now?" the director asked gently. "My father died 6 months ago in federal prison," I answered steadily. "Heart attack. He never expressed remorse, never acknowledged what he'd done. My mother remains incarcerated, sending increasingly unhinged letters to anyone who'll read them, claiming she's a political prisoner. Emma gets out in 5 years. She's apparently found religion, though her letters asking for money suggest it's just another manipulation tactic." "Do you forgive them?" I'd been asked this question hundreds of times. My answer never wavered. Forgiveness isn't mine to give. They need to forgive themselves, which requires acknowledging their actions. They've never done that. But I don't carry hatred. Hatred would mean they still have power over me. They don't. The documentary would later win awards, but more importantly, it led to legislative changes. Several states passed Marianne's Law recognizing financial abuse as domestic violence, making it easier for victims to escape and prosecute. That afternoon, I met with Liam Chen, the man who'd entered my life 6 months ago at a charity function. He was different from anyone I'd dated, patient with my trust issues, understanding of my independence, supportive without being controlling. A pediatric surgeon who dedicated his life to healing, he understood trauma and recovery. "I have something to show you," he said over lunch, pulling out architectural plans. "I know we've talked about expanding the foundation's medical services." The plans showed a comprehensive medical center integrated with our safe houses. Free healthcare for abuse survivors, addressing the physical damage that often accompanied emotional trauma. The proposed name made me cry: the Helen Walsh Healing Center. "Your grandmother saved you," Liam said softly. "This could help save others. I've already secured funding from my hospital. They want to be part of this." That evening, I hosted my weekly video call with survivors. Women from around the world logged in, sharing victories and struggles. Maria from Mexico had just started college at 35. Jennifer from Canada had launched her own business. Aisha from Nigeria was pursuing law school to help other victims. You saved my life, Maria said, tears flowing. When I saw your story, I realized I wasn't crazy. My family was abusive. You gave me permission to leave. After the call, I walked to my apartment's balcony looking out at Singapore's glittering skyline. My phone buzzed with a message from Sarah, now the Foundation's Director of U.S. Operations. She'd attached a photo from my hometown. The renovated safe house was at full capacity, 15 women rebuilding their lives where I'd once been held prisoner. Patricia called next, her voice excited. Marianne, I've been going through more of Helen's papers. I found letters she wrote to you but never sent. Do you want me to forward them? Yes, I said immediately. The letters arrived within minutes. 20 years of my grandmother's thoughts, her pain at being kept from me, her strategies to ensure my eventual freedom, her unwavering belief that I'd overcome. One line stood out, "My darling girl, they may control your body, but they'll never control your spirit. Someday you'll soar so high they won't even see your shadow. And when that day comes, remember you didn't escape because you were lucky. You escaped because you were strong. Use that strength to lift others." Tears blurred my vision as I realized I'd fulfilled her prophecy. Not just the escape, but the lifting of others. Every woman in our safe houses, every survivor who found hope in our story, every life transformed, it all traced back to a grandmother who'd loved me enough to plan for a future she wouldn't see. My reflection in the window showed a woman I barely recognized from 3 years ago. Designer clothes chosen for joy, not survival. Confident posture instead of servile hunching. Eyes that sparkled with purpose instead of dimming with despair. The phone rang. Marcus calling with updates. The final restitution payment just cleared. Your parents' house sale, the last of the liquidated assets. You've recovered everything they stole plus penalties. Put it all into the foundation. I directed without hesitation. Every penny they took will go toward freeing others. As night fell over Singapore, I thought about transformation. My parents had called me a roach, meant to scurry in darkness serving their needs. But roaches survive nuclear holocausts. They adapt. They endure. And sometimes, when the conditions are right, they grow wings. Except I was never a roach. I was a butterfly trapped in a cocoon of others' making. The struggle to break free had strengthened my wings, prepared me for flight. Now I soared across continents, carrying hope to those still trapped in their own cocoons. My story had begun with destruction, a passport shredded by cruel hands, dreams torn by those who should have nurtured them. But destruction often precedes creation. From the ashes of that passport, a phoenix rose. From the ruins of that toxic family, a foundation grew. From the pain of one woman, hope for hundreds bloomed. Tonight, as every night, women around the world would go to sleep in homes that weren't safe, serving families that didn't value them, believing lies about their worthlessness. But tonight was different. Tonight, they might stumble upon our story. Tonight, they might see our website. Tonight, they might realize that escape was possible. And tomorrow, they might spread their own wings. To everyone watching who sees themselves in my story, who feels trapped by family that uses love as a weapon and obligation as chains, you are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not worthless. You deserve freedom, respect, and the chance to discover who you are beyond others' demands. The Helen Walsh Freedom Foundation stands ready to help, because my grandmother was right. We don't escape because we're lucky. We escape because we're strong. And that strength, once freed, can change the world. This is not an ending. It's a beginning. For me, for the foundation, for every survivor finding their wings. We rise not in spite of our scars, but because of them. We soar not to escape the ground, but to lift others into flight. My name is Marianne Elizabeth Walsh. I was once told roaches don't deserve wings, but I was never a roach. I was a daughter, a sister, a survivor, and now a liberator. My wings carry me across oceans and continents, but their greatest journey is into the hearts of those who need to know that freedom is possible. From my grandmother's love to your moment of decision, the chain continues. One woman saving another, who saves another, who saves another. This is our legacy. This is our revolution. This is our time to soar. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If my story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Like this video if you believe in the power of transformation. Subscribe to follow the Foundation's work and the lives we're changing every day. And comment below with your own story of breaking free. Your courage might be the spark someone else needs to find their wings. Remember, you are stronger than you know, more valuable than they told you, and more deserving of freedom than you've been led to believe. The cage door is open. All you have to do is fly. With love, hope, and unshakable faith in your ability to soar, Mariani.